So we'll go ahead and call the Highways and Transportation meeting to order. We only have 2 items on the agenda for today's meeting, so I do anticipate that we will meet at least one more time next week. First bill I'd like to call up is Senate Bill 2250, squatted vehicles ban, and I would like Senator Barrett to present the bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Senate Bill 2250. A brief description is this would ban or make illegal the driving on public roadways of squatted vehicles. You can see in section 1, lines 11 through 19 sets out the definitions of what this bill, of the terminology. Ultimately, line 21 refers to as squatting on its back tires. Lines 22 through 27 is the legal reasoning behind this. It's obviously a safety issue, has nothing to do with aesthetics, or however someone wants to exercise their personal liberties with their vehicle. Lines 28 through 38 deal with the penalties for the bill. The first offense will be a $100 fine. Second offense will be a $200 fine. The third offense will be a $300 fine, as well as a period of 12 months suspension of their driver's license. And finally, the effect of this bill would take place 180 days from the date of passage. So that would be on or about January 27th, 2025. That's a brief description, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Could you describe for the committee sort of the problems that we have seen and why we think it's a safety issue? I think maybe there was at least one incident that happened not too far from here.
Absolutely. And in fact, not too far from Southwest Mississippi, there was an individual who was coming home from work driving a squatted vehicle. He pulls into his driveway. Child runs out into the driveway, and child is ran over and killed, and driver never saw that child. When you are driving in a squatted measure, anything in front of you, it certainly provides a problem to see that. If you put a 5-gallon bucket 5 feet in front of the vehicle, you wouldn't be able to see that 5-gallon bucket. I've made analogies to, it's kind of like being on a bass boat, and before it planes out, you can't see anything in front of you. So once it planes out, you can see everything. And with the squatting of the vehicle, you can't see anything in your immediate eyesight.
What feedback have you gotten from the law enforcement community on this bill when you've spoken to them about it?
Yeah, so I've spoken to local law enforcement officers. They have been largely in favor of it. I have received multiple comments from Facebook users who opposed it. In fact, I think someone posted on my Facebook comments last night, they opposed it because they want to be able to exercise their own right with their vehicle. And while I 100% appreciate that, we have speed limits in place not to deter wrecks, but to minimize and mitigate the damages on the wrecks. I mean, if everybody was going 15 miles an hour, there wouldn't be a deadly crash. However, we have a speed limit set to minimize the damage, and I think by eliminating the squatting of the vehicles, you would minimize or mitigate damages. These is largely what I've seen is from a teenage population who may or may not have tinted vehicles, who may or may not be on the phone, who may or may not already be distracted. And again, I go back to, this is purely for safety reasons, has nothing to do with how the vehicle looks or whether someone likes it or doesn't like it. This vehicle does not ban the squatted vehicle shows or any kind of hobby that someone may have, but it's purely to take these vehicles off of the public roadways.
Thank you. Any questions from any members of the committee? Yes, ma'am. You're recognized for a question.
Certainly. Senator, if I understood correctly, on your Facebook and stuff, you were getting comments about wanting the right to have the ability to have the squat on the vehicle. in this bill, you would still be allowed to have the equipment on the vehicle for squatting, and you could use that in types of display or types of auto shows or things of that nature. I think this bill would just detain it from being legal on the road operating.
That is correct. Yes, certainly. I know people, whether it's scraping the coast or whatever car show event may be in the state of Mississippi or outside the state of Mississippi, they could trailer those vehicles to that location and enjoy the hobbies that go along with the, the vehicle ownership. Thank you.
Senator England, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Barrett, this squatting, I've seen it called Carolina squatting. Did you mention that already?
I did not, but I've seen that.
Okay, is that because this may have originated somewhere in the Carolinas?
I think it actually originated in Baja, California, racing trucks.
That makes sense.
And the back ends were lower to jump, to race out in the Baja.
Okay, and the reason I mentioned the Carolina squat is this, do they have legislation or have they passed bills in those states to outlaw the Carolina squat?
Yes, certainly. Virginia's passed it. I think North Carolina just passed it. If I'm not mistaken, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, they're all passing similar legislation.
Okay, so we're not the first ones to do this then?
We are not.
Okay, look, I think it's a good bill. I've had my law enforcement folks talk to me about it. And I think the trucks that do this look like a dog dragging its rear end across a carpet. So I'm happy to support this.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes, Senator Blackman, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody keeps talking about trucks, but this applies to all vehicles, right?
Yeah, I think the definitions would lay out, the vertical measurement from the center line of the wheel to the bottom of the fender. So yeah, I think it would apply to all vehicles.
Thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion? I hear title sufficient to pass. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, that bill will be reported. Thank you, Senator Barrett. Next bill on today's agenda is Senate Bill 2509. This is the motor carrier regulatory law. We're just simply extending a repealer on this bill. Commissioner Tyndall at DPS asked that we bring this forward. He actually does not have this program fully up and running yet. They're still working to implement internal policies. But we had a conversation today, and he has asked that we do extend the repealer to give him the opportunity to continue the work on their internal policies. And the bill would extend until 2026. And so that would give him 2 more years to implement this program, which I think is a good program. Happy to yield for questions for any member. Do I have a motion? Title sufficient to pass. All in favor? Any opposed? That will also be reported. Do I have a final motion? All right, thank you.